Hey guys, what's up? Kimi Katiti here. I just came home from watching The Flash and I have a lot of stuff to say, so let's dig right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that it's the Flash movie and Ezra Miller is the star. But I wanted to talk about The Flash and the fact that I did go to see it. Would I recommend it to anyone? There's a lot going on that I'm going to talk about, so hang in to the end of the video. I think there's something important I really want to say about that. But yeah, I saw The Flash and here are my thoughts. So first of all, the movie in and of itself is really good. And I hate that. I hate that it was amazing. I have some nitpicks here and there. I think there's some things that weren't super brilliant, but overall it was a very fun movie to watch. It was funny when it tried to be funny. It was sad when it wanted to be sad. It like hit the major points. Technically, in terms of CGI, there were some aspects of the CGI that did take me out of the movie a lot. There were issues with some of like the face tracking and whatever it was that Ezra, like the other Ezra, because if you have seen the trailer, and I'm gonna spoil the movie, but there are two Barrys in there. And the other Barry, there are some scenes where they shoot both of them, probably separately, but there are other scenes where you can tell that there's some sort of stunt double and they're kind of just doing some sort of face tracking thing with Ezra Miller's other face. It doesn't look great throughout. Sometimes it looks great, sometimes it looks really obvious that it's someone else. So that took me out of the movie a bit. But when you watch the movie, it's heavy. There's a lot of CGI, so I don't expect them to get it right in every aspect, but there's some things that took me out of it. Some coloring, some of the superhero bodies just felt like rubber. Like a lot of the times I kept thinking, this is not a real person. Some of the fight scenes were just kind of weird. I don't know if this is a DC universe thing, but I actually also haven't really seen a lot of the other movies, but I found that to be a little bit distracting. But aside from those technical points, in terms of just the traditional movie structure and feel, it felt pretty solid. And again, I want to go back to the point that I have a lot of discomfort with that. I kind of hate it because Ezra Miller as a person, as a real life individual and not as the character of Barry Allen, is, for lack of a better term, problematic. They are problematic because of a couple of incidents that they've been involved in. They're quite numerous. I'm going to maybe try and link some in the description below. But even the fact that they're numerous and the story is very involved and it involves kidnapping and grooming of minors and physical assault, like it's just so much stuff that Barry has done that's pretty much borderline criminal, if not legitimately criminal. Like they were on the run for a while. It just blows my mind that this movie like actually was released. And so I've had some struggles with the creators of the film announced that they were going to go ahead with the release, and I understand, like when you watch the movie it seems like a huge budget movie, but Ezra Miller as a character, I have been debating whether I wanted to support this movie. And so I kind of want to dive into, instead of going into the storyline itself, which I don't really have much nitpick, or anything really to spoil except to say it was a really good story. I want to kind of dive more into the ethical dilemmas surrounding the whole piece of art in its entirety. Can we actually, when it comes to Ezra Miller, can we actually separate the art from the artist? This one's really hard because his acting performance in the movie is actually really good. Like, I was really looking for some things that would be, enough cause to say they can just replace this actor with someone else. Like, they should just replace Barry with another actor. But there's a certain essence and youthfulness and funny kind of slapstick thing that Ezra Miller brings to this character that I can see why it's kind of hard to separate it. Granted, I think one can always figure out a way. Like, one can always figure out a turnaround or a workaround. But I can see why that would be a struggle. And so my question for you guys, something I'm still trying to think about, something I'm still wrestling with in myself, is specifically when it comes to The Flash. We can talk about it broadly, maybe like, for example, Kanye West, but when it comes to The Flash, can we actually separate art from artist? This is an example of someone who is like, the stuff they have done is really, really dark. And I'm like, what is the threshold? Like, when is someone going to say this is enough? You're going to be blacklisted. Do we want to support blacklisting? Like how do we work through this for future instances? But then I want to go a little bit deeper and talk about something else, which is, again, specifying and zoning into Ezra Miller, that the weaponized empathy of the fact that they are non-binary. Like, how do I even talk about this? How do I even express this with words? I have a suspicion that they are using, the they, them pronouns, the non-binary identity, as sort of a shield with which to justify their acts of violence, which are surprisingly against women most of the time. And I feel like the reception towards that has been tricky. I don't think people are, for the most part, justifying his actions because, he identifies as non-binary, they identify as non-binary. But I also just wonder, like, as an ideology or as a way of identifying, can we really talk about how maybe we need to scale back on the solid state, like, yes, anyone who doesn't feel like they belong in the binary doesn't belong in the binary, and therefore we should just pretend that they had any biological sex to begin with in the first place. Because there are instances where people weaponize it to justify terrible, terrible things. And so I want to leave that hanging in the air. I'm going to return to it. I want to talk about another point and slice that in between. So there's the weaponized empathy aspect, right? Then let's go to flip side. We're not going to talk about Ezra. We're leaving that in the air with weaponized empathy. I want to talk about the fact that there are other people who were in this movie. There are other people who worked on this movie. The VFX artists, the people who shot the film, the directors, the writers, all the artists, storyboard, like the incredible team that worked on this, and the industry that depends, people whose livelihood depends on the entertainment industry. Should this movie have been shelved because of one bad actor who is weaponizing an ideology, who's weaponizing an identity to get away with heinous crimes? Should their work be shelved for that one individual, right? That's a question I also struggled with leading up to watching this movie and through my time watching it. Now, coming to my final point when it comes to separating art from artist, or it comes to the good people who worked on this film who didn't do anything wrong, and the ethical dilemma of that, like, should we shelve this project? Should we just throw all their work in the trash for one person who did bad? For Ezra's weaponized thing, that it's just my suspicion. I'm not like saying like this with a hard gavel, like this is what they've done. I think all in all, when it comes to The Flash, one thing is important. It's a great opportunity to talk about all these separate issues with those we love. So I would go crazy enough to say, for the people who depend on the entertainment industry who worked on this movie, I would say go see the movie. If you want, like, you don't have to. I'm not saying you have to, but if you're like, you know what, I want to go see The Flash. I'm going to see it with my family. We need moments to spend time together, and we love, we grew up reading Flash comics. We are DC fans. I'd say just go see it. But I would also add, see it because you're ready to have a discussion about all of these complex issues in life, in society. We have the mixture of social media. We have different ideologies and identities that are stepping into the scene. And I think it's not helpful to just say, don't look at that, don't think about it, this thing doesn't exist. I think all these crazy, big, just hard to deal with issues need to be discussed. I'm a fan of bravery. I'm a fan of courage. I'm not a fan of being silenced and cowering and just pretending certain things don't exist. If there are bad things happening, talk about them and present the good things that you want to turn people towards. And that's why I decided to go see The Flash. That's why I'm going to make this video about it. Because I would love to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below as we dig into these different topics. Is there such a thing as weaponized empathy? Is there such a thing as supporting a movie because of the other people that worked on it who didn't have moral flaws? Or should films, projects, any art generally, any work generally, be shelved and be put aside for one bad actor. Let's talk about these things. Let's find ways to shift away from cancel culture and shift towards solutions and discussion and dialogue with bravery. Anyway, just my thoughts. I think the movie itself is kind of too big to really talk about here. One final thought, I guess, would be if you've seen Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse, there are some themes that overlap, which I find ironic, but I'll probably wait. If I do have any opinions to share on it, I'll probably wait to share what I think about the two multiversal thematic movies, superhero movies. But it's pretty interesting, and yeah, when it comes to righteousness, good and evil, I think this whole thing, the movie itself, and what's going on around it, is just a great conversational opportunity, maybe with your older kids, with your family, with your friends. Anyway, just my thoughts. Love you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.